going on, you guys? This is Madam, and I'm coming back to you again. This time we are going to the New York Times, and this is kind of like something that's going on as far as George Floyd. The article says Texas board recommends posthumous pardon for George Floyd. The 2004 conviction, which was brought by a former Houston narcotics officer now at the center of policing scandal, would be set aside if the government approves. Okay, and the article is by Shaila Dewan, and it starts off by saying in 2004 George Floyd was one of the scores of people arrested on the word of a Houston narcotics officer, Gerald M. Goines, who said he watched Mr. Floyd hand over a dime rock of crack cocaine during an undercover drug buy. But after a botched drug raid ended with the death of a couple in their Houston home in 2019, Mr. Goines, who is now retired, became the center of a massive policing scandal that resulted in a felony charge against 9 officers. Prosecutors said Mr. Goines fabricated evidence to conduct the raid, including by inventing an informant, and have charged him with 2 counts of felony murder. He also faces federal civil rights charges, but has denied the allegations. Now the state parole board has recommended a posthumous pardon in the Houston case for Mr. Floyd, whose killing during the unrelated arrest in Minneapolis in 2020 touched off a national debate over race and policing. Okay? The pardon was requested by the Harris County Public Defender's Office and endorsed by the District Attorney Kim Oog. I apologize if I mispronounced the last name. Mr. Floyd and Mr. Goines have come into the spotlight on opposite sides of the same issue: the vast unfairness of the United States criminal justice system, and specifically the grotesque abuse of power by police officers. Allison Mathis, a public defender, wrote in the 241-page pardon application. Granting the pardon, she said, would show that Texas was interested in fundamental fairness and increasing accountability for police officers who break our trust in their oaths. The board's vote for the pardon on Monday was unanimous, but a final decision will be made by Governor GregAbbott. The governor's office did not respond to requests for comment. Mr. Floyd initially fought the charges, then accepted a plea deal in the case and was sentenced to serve 10 months. He had gone to trial, the pardon application said. He could have been branded a habitual offender and faced a minimum sentence of 25 years to life. Ben Camp and Antonio R., civil rights attorneys who represented Floyd's family, called upon the governor to grant the pardon, but added the passing criminal justice reform measures was even more important, like the U.S. Senate and the Texas legislature left undone the hard but necessary work of protecting residents from unacceptable police violence, they wrote in a statement. The deadly Houston raid occurred in January 2019 when officers burst into a home of a Navy veteran, Dennis Turtle, and his wife, R. Nichols, working on information that drugs had been brought there by Mr. Goines and others. A shootout ensued that left Mr. Turtle and Mrs. dead, and 5 officers wounded after the prosecutor said it appeared that Mr. Goines had lied about the drug purchases. The district attorney's office identified more than 150 people, including Mr. Floyd, who were convicted in cases where Mr. Goines was the sole witness or submitted a search warrant affidavit, said Joshua Riss, the chief of the district attorney's post-conviction Weiss division. He said his office attempted to notify all of them so they could petition to have their convictions vacated. Mr. Floyd probably never received his letter, which was sent to a Houston address after he had moved to Minneapolis. Last year, a pair of brothers, Stephen and Otis Mallet Jr., were exonerated on the grounds that Mr. Goines had falsified evidence against them in the unrelated case. The pattern established by the case and the botch raid, Mr. Rice said, means that other defendants who want relief will not be required to prove that Mr. Goines lied, only that their convictions rested on evidence he provided. Many of the defendants have been difficult to find, Ms. Mathis, the public defender, said. She filed the pardon application partly in hopes that the publicity would help reach more of them. While most of the case involved low-level drug offenses, which relatively shorter sentences, she said the prior convictions could make punishment harsher if the person was arrested again. Nicole DeBlow, I apologize if I mispronounced that name, a lawyer for Mr. Goines, said he had pleaded not guilty to the charges against him. She said that the prosecutor's move to dismiss convictions in his previous cases was a way of bolstering the criminal case against him in the drug raid. There is no new evidence of any kind to indicate there's any misconduct whatsoever or any problem with any of those previous arrests, she said. Mr. Goines' former partner Stephen Bryant pled guilty to falsifying records and faces up to 20 years in prison. According to the report in the Texas Monthly, Texas has granted a posthumous pardon only once in a rape case where the defendant was cleared by DNA evidence. Okay, so that is the latest in regards to George Floyd and everything. It's a lot of people, from what I gather, that was wrongly convicted because of them falsifying evidence. Of course, Mr. Goines in this case is going to say that he did nothing wrong, which only shows to his judgment. Most, and if not all officers, they do take an oath to serve and protect, to not be biased. In a sense, is what I gather, and to be fair to people. But a lot of the times there are different stories on different sides of the tracks. Hypothetically speaking, as far as police officers are concerned, they are expected to have a certain quota each month, that they have to fulfill. I know in Baltimore, allegedly, I'll say that, there's a lot of officers that are put under extreme pressure to make arrests within a month's span, and at certain times in a month you can see an influx of people being put in jail, regardless if it's just or unjust, it's just a thing. Most officers, I don't think, would talk about it. And again, all of this is allegedly. So, I mean, there's stories on each side of the fence. But the question begs to be asked, when does it become more about hitting your quota and more about the lives that you are going to destroy in the process? Granted, people make their own decisions and they make their own choices. However, I believe it is a thing of being in the wrong place or the wrong time in the wrong time. For some people, not all people. Okay, this is not I'm not advocating for every person of color or every person that's ever been put in jail. However, there are some situations that people don't take account of, and most people just go based off of the situation itself, the crime itself, the accusations. When we all know and have been taught that we are all innocent until proven guilty, a lot of times for people of color, we do not get that liberty to be innocent until proven guilty. And with that being said, you guys, I want to thank you so much for coming to my video. I also want to thank you for commenting on my video. And as always, I would love to hear what you have to say about this story or any of my stories that I do have on my channel. And I will get back with you guys in the next video.